It's all right. We're gonna fix this.
Just breathe.
Poor human mechanic saved two giant alien sisters, but what arrived the next day shocked the galaxy. The desert night was silent. Only the wind moved across the broken sands. In a small corner of the colony world called Dresden 5, a poor human mechanic named Evan Brooks worked alone in his dusty workshop. His hands were black with grease, his shirt torn, and his old repair droid hummed weakly beside him. He had fixed everything from tractor engines to old mining bots. But tonight even his tools seemed tired. Evan looked at the cracked ceiling and whispered to himself, "Another day, another repair." He was poor but proud. He lived for machines. They never lied, never judged. They only needed care and patience, something he still had plenty of. Then the night sky tore apart. A streak of fire crossed above the dunes. So bright, it turned the desert silver. The ground shook a few seconds later, followed by a deep rumble that sent dust falling from the roof. Evan froze, heart pounding. "That's no meteor," he muttered. He grabbed his flashlight and an old plasma rifle that barely worked. Outside, the wind was hot and full of static. He followed the trail of smoke and burning glassy sand until he reached a ridge. Below him, a giant metallic shape lay half buried in the dunes, pieces still glowing red from the crash. It was a ship, but not any design he knew. Huge, elegant, alive in some strange way. Evan climbed down carefully, his boots sinking in the sand. He called out, "Is anyone alive?" There was no answer, only the whisper of cooling metal. He reached a broken hatch and forced it open with his wrench. Inside he saw faint light, and then movement. Two massive figures lay among the wreckage. Both were female, alien, and far larger than any human. Their skin shimmered faintly like silver and gold mixed with starlight. One had long white hair that floated softly even without wind. The other had darker tones, bronze skin with glowing veins of blue. Evan gasped but forced himself to move closer. One of them groaned, a sound so deep it made the air vibrate. She was alive, bleeding from her arm. "Easy there. I'm here to help," Evan said softly, though his voice trembled. She opened her eyes, huge, bright like twin moons. Her gaze fixed on him with confusion and fear. "A human?" She whispered weakly. "How?" "Don't talk," he said, tearing a piece of cloth from his shirt to wrap her wound. "You're hurt, and your ship's a wreck. We need to get you out before something explodes." The giant woman tried to push him away, but her strength failed. "My sister," she murmured, pointing to the second body. "Save her." Evan turned quickly. The other alien lay unconscious, a heavy beam pinning her legs. He ran to his small vehicle, grabbed a hydraulic jack, and worked fast. Every muscle burned. Every second felt endless. Finally, with a crack, the beam lifted. He pulled her free, coughing as smoke filled the air. He didn't understand why he risked his life for them. Maybe because no one else ever would. Maybe because deep down, being human still meant something. He dragged both of them to safety near a rock ledge. The crash site behind them hissed and burned. Sparks lit up the night like fireflies. When the first rays of morning touched the horizon, Evan sat beside them, exhausted. The taller one, the one who had spoken, finally moved again. Her wounds had stopped bleeding. Her silver skin glowed faintly. She looked at him and said softly, "You should not have done this, human, if they find us. They'll destroy you first." Evan wiped the sweat from his brow. "Yeah, well, it's a little late for that now." She studied him for a long time, as if trying to understand how such a small creature could show such bravery. Finally she whispered, "My name is Lyra." Evan smiled faintly. "I'm Evan, a mechanic, not a soldier. Lyra turned her head toward the unconscious sister. Her name is Cerise, she said. If she dies, 1,000 worlds will mourn. Evan frowned. 1,000 worlds? Who are you two? Lyra's eyes dimmed with pain and warning. We are daughters of the Titan Emperor, she said. And now we are fugitives. The words hit him like thunder. He looked at the wreck, realizing what he had dragged out of the fire wasn't just survivors. They were royalty from a race of giants. Powerful enough to crush worlds still, he only said, You're safe here. I promise. Lyra's expression softened, a mix of disbelief and gratitude. You risked your life for strangers? She whispered. No human would have dared. Evan chuckled tiredly. Guess I'm not most humans. She closed her eyes, murmuring something in her alien tongue. The sound was gentle, like wind through stars. Then she said, Thank you. Evan Brooks of Earth. The sun rose higher, painting the desert gold. Evan looked at the two giant sisters lying in the sand beside him, for the first time in years. He felt like his broken life had a purpose again. He didn't know it yet. But this single act of kindness would change the fate of more than one world, and to all who listen to this story. If you enjoy tales where humanity's heart shines brightest among the stars, then gently consider subscribing to this channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive among the galaxies. Morning light crept across the desert, painting the wreck of the alien ship in silver and orange. Evan stood beside the giants, unsure if what he'd done was brave or foolish. He had pulled two beings from a burning vessel that looked like a temple made of metal and stars. Now he had to hide them, protect them, and somehow keep breathing in a galaxy that would soon notice their fall. He loaded every tool and energy cell he could salvage into his old truck. The vehicle groaned under the weight as he guided it across the dunes toward his workshop. Lyra, the taller sister, insisted on walking. Though every step left deep prints in the sand, Cerise, still unconscious, was wrapped in a tarp and laid carefully in the back. When they reached the colony edge, Evan's heart raced. Drones hovered above the scrapyards, scanning for wreckage. He took the long path through the dried riverbed, every bunk threatening to wake the desert dogs that slept beneath the rocks. Finally, he reached his shop, a metal shelter patched with rust and dreams. Inside, quick, he whispered. Lyra ducked under the door, nearly tearing the frame. Her head brushed the ceiling. Her silver eyes scanned the cluttered room filled with parts and oil stains. Small but safe, she murmured, almost with a smile. Evan pushed a hidden lever behind a shelf, revealing a trapdoor that led to the basement storage. He had built it years ago to hide from raiders, never expecting it would shelter royal aliens one day. Down there, the air was cool, dim, and smelled of engine dust. He set up makeshift beds using thermal blankets and old cushions. Hours passed. Cerise began to stir. Her voice was soft, melodic. Where are we? She asked. Evan leaned closer. Safe. For now. Lyra knelt beside her, holding her hand. Their size made the room feel smaller than a coffin. Yet there was warmth in it. Cerise turned to Evan. Her glowing eyes filled with confusion. You are human, yes? You helped us? He nodded. You were hurt. I couldn't leave you out there. Lyra looked at her sister, her expression carrying both pride and sorrow. He saved us when no one else would. Cerise tried to sit up but winced, blue light flickering along her veins. Evan reached for a first aid kit. Don't move too fast. You're healing. Lyra watched him in silence, her warrior instincts studying every move. You risked much, human, she said. If the hunters find you hiding us, they'll erase this colony. Evan wiped the oil from his hands. Then let's make sure they don't find you. Outside? The winds picked up again, carrying static through the air. He switched on his radar scanner. Faint energy signatures pulsed on the horizon. "They're searching already," he muttered. Lyra's gaze hardened. "Bounty ships," she said. "They will not stop until our heads are delivered to the Emperor's enemies." Evan blinked. "Wait, enemies? You're saying someone's trying to overthrow your father?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, the Council of Blades. They seek to control the Empire through blood," Cerise added weakly. "They killed our guards, destroyed our escort ships. We barely escaped through a worm gate before it collapsed." Evan leaned against a wall, his mind spinning. "And you crashed on my planet by chance." "Fate," Lyra corrected, her voice calm but sharp. "The stars choose strange guardians for the first time." Evan laughed, a tired, nervous laugh. "If the stars pick me, they must be desperate." Lyra tilted her head, not understanding the joke, yet her expression softened. "Desperation breeds heroes," she said quietly. Hours turned into day. Evan worked to repair some of their broken tech. His hands, though small, moved with precision. Lyra watched closely. Impressed by his skill, "You rebuild with scraps," she noted. "Your machines obey you like soldiers," he shrugged. "When you grow up poor, you learn to make things work." Cerise smiled faintly. "Your heart shines bright for such a small being." Before Evan could answer, the alarm on his console beeped. A high-frequency scan swept through the area. "Someone sweeping the colony grid," he whispered. Lyra stood, her eyes burning silver. "They're near." She moved to the surface level. Ducking under the ceiling, "Stay here," she told her sister and Evan. Then she stepped outside, every motion silent yet powerful. Above the workshop, a black drone hovered, its red lens blinking. Lyra reached out with one massive hand, crushed it in a flash of energy. Sparks rained down on her silver armor. Evan climbed up the ladder, just in time to see the smoke. "You shouldn't have done that," he said, panic rising. "Now they'll know exactly where you are," Lyra turned to him, her eyes fierce. They already knew human. At that moment, the horizon glowed. 3 ships descending fast, dark shapes cutting through the clouds. Evan's scanner screamed with signals. He looked at Lyra, fear and adrenaline mixing in his chest. "What do we do now?" Lyra drew herself to full height, towering above the workshop roof. Her silver hair streamed behind her like liquid light. "Now," she said coldly, "we fight." Evan felt his heart hammering. His tiny hands clenched around his plasma rifle. He was just a mechanic, a man of bolts and wrenches. But the fire in her eyes told him this was no longer about repairs. It was survival. Down below, Cerise pressed her hand to the wall. Whispering in her alien tongue, strange symbols began to glow across the basement floor. Ancient Titan runes, energy pulsing like a heartbeat. The ships roared closer, dust rising in waves. Evan took one last breath, glancing at the giant beside him. "Guess the workshop's about to get loud," he said. Lyra smirked slightly. "Show them, human, what your machines can do." And as the first enemy vessel touched down outside his yard, the poor mechanic of Dresden 5 stood shoulder to shoulder with a giant princess of the stars. Ready to face the storm together, the battle for survival had begun. The ground trembled as the enemy ships landed, sending waves of dust and smoke through the air. Evan's heart pounded in his chest. His hands shook, but not from fear, from focus. He was a mechanic, not a soldier, yet in that moment, he knew machines could become weapons. Lyra stood tall in front of the workshop, her silver armor gleaming under the alien sunlight. Her massive form cast a long shadow over the sand. She turned to Evan and said quietly, "Whatever happens, stay close to me." Evan nodded, clutching his old plasma rifle. The weapon looked like a toy in his hands compared to the towering alien beside him. "I'll try not to die," he said. Trying to sound calm, Lyra gave a faint smirk. Do better than try. The first wave of attackers emerged from the smoke. Armored figures moving in formation. Their helmets were shaped like blades. Their weapons humming with red light. The blades of the council, Lyra hissed. Traitors to my father. Evan crouched behind a metal crate, scanning his surroundings. He had hidden old security drones, magnetic traps, and motion sensors all around the workshop, leftovers from his junkyard projects. Let's make this place earn its keep, he muttered, flipping a switch. A burst of blue sparks erupted near the approaching soldiers. Several of them stumbled as the sand beneath them exploded, sending shrapnel and heat waves across the field. Lyra didn't wait. She charged forward like a storm given shape. Her fist crashed into the first enemy, shattering armor like glass. Evan watched in awe as she moved with terrifying grace. Every blow echoed like thunder. Her voice roared with anger and sorrow. For my sister. For our empire. The attackers regrouped, firing energy bolts that scorched the air. Evan ducked and activated his drone launcher. 3 small drones zipped out. Their lights flashing bright blue, they swarmed the enemy, zapping them with bursts of electrical discharge. From below, Cerise heard the chaos, her body still weak, but her spirit burning. She reached toward the glowing runes on the wall, whispering words of power. The air shimmered around her as her wounds began to close. Her eyes opened fully bright, determined, alive again. She rose, pressing her hand to the ceiling. The metal above her rippled like water. Evan and Lyra both looked up as a pillar of light shot from beneath the ground, striking the enemy ranks and throwing them backward. Cerise emerged from the hidden door, her presence gentle but fierce. Her bronze skin glowed with blue fire. Sister, she called. I will not hide while you fight alone. Lyra smiled with pride. Then stand with me, Cerise of the stars. Together. The 2 giant sisters fought side by side, moving like twin storms. The ground cracked beneath their steps. The sky itself seemed to tremble. Evan ran between the debris, fixing traps, recharging drones, using his mind as his weapon. He tossed a plasma cell into an engine block, turned a lever, and shouted, "Cover your ears." The explosion ripped through the yard, engulfing half the enemy squad. When the smoke cleared, silence fell. Only a few blades remained, dragging their wounded away. The rest were gone defeated by a mechanic. 2 sisters, and sheer human stubbornness. Evan fell to his knees, breathing hard. His clothes were torn, his hands burned. He looked around at the destruction of his workshop. Twisted metal glowing in the sand. That was my best generator, he muttered. Half laughing, half crying, Lyra knelt beside him, her massive form lowering gently. Her silver eyes softened. You fought with courage. Human, Evan shook his head. I just didn't want to die, Cerise smiled softly, kneeling on the other side. You risked everything for us, she said. Why? He wiped the sweat from his brow. Because you needed help. Because no one else would. Lyra stared at him for a long moment, then did something that froze him in place. She placed her massive hand over her heart and bowed her head. Then, by the oath of Titans, she said solemnly, your life is bound to ours, Evan Brooks of Earth. Evan blinked. Wait, what does that mean? Cerise looked surprised too. Sister, are you sure? Lyra nodded, her voice deep and steady. He saved royal blood. He fought beside us with no fear. No Titan shall harm him. No empire shall forget his name. A beam of light shimmered between them, forming a glowing mark on Evan's hand. It looked like a symbol half-gear, half-star, pulsing faintly with energy. Evan stared at it, confused and amazed. I didn't agree to any magic tattoos. Lyra's expression turned serious. That mark is sacred. It means that your life is now protected by the Empire. Before Evan could speak, a soft beeping came from the wreckage. He looked up at the smoldering ship remains. Its core had reactivated. A small device buried in the hull blinked red. Cerese's expression changed instantly. Lyra. That's an Imperial beacon. Lyra stood, her armor glowing. Impossible. It must have been destroyed. Evan checked his scanner, his face going pale. It's sending a signal into space, he said. Whoever's out there, they just got your location. A cold wind swept across the desert. The sisters exchanged a heavy glance. Cerese whispered, "Then our father will know we're alive." Lyra's eyes darkened. "Or our enemies will know where to strike again." The beacon's pulse grew faster, echoing through the air like a heartbeat. Evan stepped closer, staring up at the stars that glittered faintly above the smoke. Somewhere out there, someone powerful had heard the call. He didn't know if it was salvation or doom, but he knew one thing for certain: nothing would ever be the same again. High above Dresden 5, the night sky burned with invisible signals. The beacon from the wreck pulsed like a dying star, sending waves of data across the black void, somewhere far beyond the human colonies. Deep inside the heart of the Galactic Titan Empire, an ancient throne room stirred to life. Emperor Kelter sat in silence. His armor was carved from meteor steel. His eyes glowed like molten suns around him. The hall of the Titans shimmered with living metal and the songs of stars. For months he had mourned the loss of his daughters, Lyra and Cerese, believing them dead after the ambush at the Council of Blades. Now the beacon's sudden cry shattered that belief. "Signal traced to a human world," announced a holographic guard. Bowing low, "Energy signature matches royal vessel Aurelian." Crash confirmed. The Emperor rose slowly, his steps echoing like thunder. "My daughters live," he murmured. Then his voice turned cold. "Prepare my fleet, and burn the traitors' worlds if this is a trick." Far below, on the desert world, Evan Brooks stood outside his ruined workshop. Staring at the flickering beacon, Lyra and Cerese watched beside him, their faces tense and unreadable. The blue glow painted their features in ghostly light. "What happens now?" Evan asked quietly, his voice shaking. "Whoever's receiving that signal, will they come for you?" Lyra's gaze stayed on the stars. "If it reached our father, he will come himself," she said. "But if the council intercepted it first, they will send death." Cerese turned to Evan, her expression filled with worry. "If they find this colony, they'll destroy everything, human cities, crops, even the skies." Evan clenched his fists. "Then we hide the signal, or shut it down." He ran back into the workshop. Climbing through broken panels, the air smelled of smoke and oil. He found the beacon's core pulsing under a slab of fused metal. Sparks danced like lightning. Come on," he muttered, twisting wires and rerouting energy. Lyra crouched beside him, her huge hands steadying the core. "Careful," she warned. "The beacon's power is beyond your tools." Evan smiled faintly. "Everything's fixable, if you know how to listen." The beacon flickered, slowing for a heartbeat. For a moment, hope flashed in his chest. Then the pulse roared back stronger than before, bursting through the ceiling in a column of light. The sound was deafening, the air trembling with raw power. Cerese cried out, shielding her face. "It's broadcasting full strength. The entire fleet will see us." Lyra grabbed Evan, pulling him away just as the beacon exploded into a storm of sparks. The blast threw them backward, dust and light filling the air. When the smoke cleared, the beacon was gone, burned to ash. But the damage was done. Evan coughed, his ears ringing. "Please tell me that didn't go too far." Lyra's voice was grim. Every starship within 100 systems saw that. Cerese knelt beside them, eyes glowing faintly. Our Father will know. But so will our enemies. Evan looked up at the horizon, and his breath caught. The sky was no longer empty. A streak of silver light cut through the clouds. Enormous, silent, majestic. That's a ship, isn't it? He whispered. Lyra's expression changed. Part fear, part awe. Not a ship. Human, she said quietly. That's the Imperial throne. My father's vessel. The ground shook as something vast entered the planet's upper atmosphere. Clouds split apart. Lightning rippled across the desert. The colonists miles away looked up in terror as the heavens glowed with blue fire. Evan stumbled backward, eyes wide. He's really coming here? Lyra nodded, her voice heavy. The Emperor of 1,000 worlds comes only for war or for blood. Cerise placed a trembling hand on her sister's arm. He thinks we're dead, Lyra. He may see this world as the grave of his children, not their refuge. Evan swallowed hard. Then we have to make him see the truth before someone else gets killed. Lyra turned to him, her eyes fierce yet grateful. You are brave for a creature so fragile, she said. But my father does not speak. He judges. Hours later, the sky darkened completely. The Emperor's ship hung above the planet like a new moon. Its shadow covered half the desert. Its size was beyond imagination. Miles of silver metal humming with energy older than Earth itself. Inside the colony, people ran, shouting, aliens, giants, warships. Some fled into bunkers, others prayed. The governor tried to contact Central Command. But the Kungs were dead. Evan stood with Lyra and Cerise on the ridge, watching the impossible sight unfold. If he's your father, he said softly, what's he going to do when he finds a human standing beside you? Lyra's answer was quiet. He may kill you before he listens. Cerise shook her head. No, father is wise, Lyra frowned. Wisdom fades when grief rules the heart. Above them, golden lights began to fall, not weapons, but landing crafts, hundreds of them, descending in perfect formation. Evan stepped back, his pulse racing. How do we survive this? Lyra looked toward the rising dust, her silver armor glowing faintly in the wind. By showing him that humanity still remembers honor, she said, stay near me and do not bow. No matter what happens. The air trembled as the first of the Imperial ships touched the sand, towering figures of metal and light emerging from within. At their center, a being larger than any Titan they had seen. Cloaked in shimmering gold, walked forward, Cerise whispered, tears in her eyes, Father. The Emperor stopped before them, his gaze sweeping over the battlefield, over the wreck, and finally over Evan. His voice rolled like thunder across the desert. A human? Evan's knees threatened to give out, but he forced himself to stand straight. I saved your daughters, he said. I didn't mean any harm. The Emperor's glowing eyes narrowed. You touched royal blood, fought with Titans, broke the laws of the Empire. His voice deepened, shaking the sand beneath their feet. Tell me, human, why should I not erase you and your world for your insolence? Lyra stepped forward, raising her voice. Because he did what our empire forgot, Father. He showed mercy. The Emperor's eyes flickered with surprise. His hands stopped mid-motion. The silence between them stretched like the space between stars. Finally, his voice softened, though still colder than the void. Then he will prove it, he said. Bring the human aboard the throne. Let us see if his courage is truth or chance. Evan's heart sank as golden light wrapped around him. Pulling him upward toward the sky, Lyra called out, Evan! But her voice faded as he vanished into the beam. The human mechanic of Dresden 5 was now a prisoner of the Emperor of 1,000 worlds, and his trial of worth had just begun. The light swallowed Evan whole. The ground vanished beneath his feet, and the desert wind was replaced by silence, cold and endless. When his vision cleared, He found himself standing on a platform of shining silver, stretching farther than his eyes could see. Before him rose the heart of the imperial throne, a hall so vast it could hold cities. The ceiling shimmered like a galaxy, stars and nebulae swirling in slow motion above. Giant statues lined both sides, ancient titans carved from crystal and gold, their eyes glowing faintly. Evan took a step forward, his boots echoing softly. He felt small, smaller than ever, like a grain of sand standing in front of gods. Then a deep, resonant voice filled the air. Human of Earth. He turned and saw him. Emperor Kelter, standing at the far end of the hall. His presence bent the air, his form towering beyond comprehension. His armor looked forged from the heart of suns, and his eyes burned like molten gold. Around him stood dozens of Titan guards, each taller than buildings, their weapons humming with quiet power. Evan's throat went dry, but he forced himself to speak. I didn't mean disrespect. I only wanted to help your daughters. The Emperor raised one massive hand, silencing him instantly. You touched royal blood, interfered with Titan destiny, and raised a weapon against my soldiers, he said, his voice echoing across the hall like thunder. You stand here not as a guest, but as one judged by the stars. Evan swallowed. If helping someone means judgment, then I'll face it. The Emperor's glowing eyes narrowed. Bravery from a creature so weak, he said coldly. Tell me, human, do you fear death? Evan hesitated, then shook his head. I fear doing nothing, for a long moment. Kelter was silent. The court murmured softly among themselves. Even the guards seemed uncertain. Then the Emperor lifted his staff. A blinding ring of light spread out from the floor, surrounding Evan. This is the trial of worth, Kelter declared. You claim to act with courage and heart. Let the throne decide if that heart can endure the weight of the stars. The light around Evan pulsed, and suddenly the floor fell away. He gasped as the world shifted. He was no longer in the throne room. He was inside a dream of fire and void. He stood on a metallic bridge suspended over a bottomless pit. Across from him, ghostly figures began to form, reflections of himself. Versions of Evan with cruel faces, voices dripping with doubt. You saved them for glory, one sneered. You wanted power. No, Evan said quietly. I wanted to do what was right. The ghosts circled him, whispering lies and fears. You're weak, you're worthless. You'll die forgotten. He covered his ears. Falling to his knees, the pressure in his mind felt unbearable. But then he remembered Lyra's fierce eyes and Ceresa's gentle smile. He remembered the night he dragged them from the wreck, his hands burning, his lungs full of smoke. He stood, breathing hard. I may be small, he shouted, but I don't need to be big to make a difference. The air shuddered. The illusions burst into dust. The pit beneath him closed. And suddenly he was back in the throne room. Standing tall and trembling, but alive, Kelter watched him silently. You faced your fears and did not kneel, he said. Few Titans have done the same. From behind the Emperor, Lyra and Cerise entered the hall, escorted by guards, their armor repaired, their faces proud. Father, Lyra said, her voice clear. He is not our enemy. He saved us when no Titan dared. He fought when others fled. Cerise stepped beside her. He gave us his home, his time, and his kindness, she said softly. He risked his life for ours. Without knowing our names, Keltor's gaze flicked to them, then back to Evan. And yet, he said, you brought war to his world. Lyra's jaw tightened. Then punish me, not him. The Emperor's golden eyes softened slightly. You would bear punishment for a human? She nodded. Yes, for the first time in centuries. Keltor smiled faintly. Then perhaps there is something my empire has forgotten, he said quietly. Honor is not born from power, but from compassion. He looked down at Evan. You have earned the respect of my bloodline. Human mechanic, Evan blinked, unsure what to say. So? You're not going to destroy Earth? The Emperor gave a low, rumbling laugh. No, not today, he said. But you must understand, your world has been seen by the stars. There will be those who seek to use it, those who envy your courage. He raised his staff again, and a bright symbol of light appeared on Evan's chest, the same star and gear mark glowing stronger. From this moment, you are under Imperial protection, Coulter declared. No fleet, no warlord, no empire shall harm you or your kind without facing my wrath. The hall erupted in murmurs. Cerese's eyes filled with tears, and Lyra bowed deeply. Thank you. Father, Evan looked around in disbelief. You're serious? I just became some kind of galactic citizen? Coulter smirked slightly. No, human, something rarer. You became a friend of the Titans, but before relief could settle, a sudden tremor shook the hall. The lights flickered red. A guard shouted. Energy surge detected. Source, outer orbit. Coulter's expression darkened. The Council of Blades, he growled. They followed the beacon's trail. Alarms blared. The walls vibrated as explosions echoed across the upper decks. Outside, massive ships emerged from the void, engines blazing with crimson fire. Lyra drew her blade. Cerese grabbed her staff. Evan looked toward the massive doors, his heart pounding again. They found us, he said. Coulter lifted his weapon, the air around him glowing gold. Then they will remember, he said, why the Titans were feared among stars. The throne shuddered as the Emperor's fleet prepared for battle. And Evan realized his trial wasn't over yet. It had only just begun. The Imperial throne shook violently. Walls of gold and crystal rippled as explosions echoed through the corridors. The alarm screamed in a deep, metallic tone that made the air vibrate. Evan stumbled, gripping the edge of a console to steady himself. His reflection flickered across the polished floor, sweat and dust mixing on his face. Outside the giant windows, chaos unfolded in space. Dozens of crimson warships surrounded the Emperor's fleet, their weapons glowing like red suns, firing bolts of plasma that tore through the void. The Council of Blades had come to finish what they started. Emperor Coulter stood tall at the center of the command hall. His golden cloak burned with light as he raised his staff. Bring the shields to full strength, he ordered. From the line of suns, Lyra and Cerese stood beside him, their faces lit by the glow of tactical screens. Lyra's expression was calm, but fierce. Cerese's eyes glimmered with worry as she glanced at Evan. Stay close, she whispered. This ship will soon become a battlefield. Evan looked around, surrounded by alien technology far beyond his understanding. But one thing was clear. The energy systems were overloading. Your power grid's unstable, he said, rushing to the nearest terminal. You'll blow your shields if this keeps up. A Titan engineer turned to him, confused and a bit insulted. Human, do not touch. Do you want to live or argue? Evan snapped, his hands already working. He rerouted auxiliary power through the core dampeners, sparks jumping across the panel. You're bleeding energy through the secondary coils. See this? It's leaking charge. The engineer blinked, stunned, then nodded quickly. He's right. The Emperor's gaze flicked toward Evan, his voice low and commanding. Let him work. As the battle raged outside, Evan moved like lightning, typing commands, rerouting circuits, and using tools smaller than a Titan's finger. The ship's lights stabilized, and the shields flared brighter, absorbing a wave of enemy fire. Lyra looked down at him, pride flashing in her eyes. You've done more with these machines than most Titans could, she said. Evan grinned breathlessly. Guess fixing things runs in my blood. The Emperor turned to him. his golden eyes glowing brighter. Courage, skill, defiance. Perhaps the stars did not choose wrongly when they sent you here. Before Evan could reply, the floor shook again. This time, not from outside fire, but from inside, the doors burst open, and a squad of enemy infiltrators stormed in, their armor black with red edges, their faces hidden behind jagged masks. Kelter roared, "Traitors!" The room erupted into chaos. The Titans swung massive blades that shattered steel. Lyra charged like a thunderstorm, cutting through the enemy ranks. Cerise raised her staff, summoning waves of blue energy that hurled the attackers against the walls. Evan ducked behind a control console, sparks raining down. One of the infiltrators spotted him, raising a weapon. A crimson bolt hissed through the air. Evan dove to the side, grabbing a fallen blaster from the floor. He fired wildly, managing to hit the enemy's leg. The alien stumbled, growled, and turned its weapon again before it could fire. Lyra's hand closed around its neck. Lifting it effortlessly off the ground, she crushed the armor like glass. "No one touches him," she snarled. Evan stared up at her, half terrified, half amazed. "Remind me never to make you angry," he muttered. Then, through the chaos, a new voice echoed across the hall, cold and venomous. "So this is the human who defies Titans." Everyone turned. From the shattered doorway stepped a tall, silver-clad warrior with a scar running across his jaw. His armor was etched with the mark of the Council of Blades, and in his hand he carried a glowing spear. "General Vaylor," Lyra hissed. "You murdered our escort fleet," Vaylor smirked. "And soon your father." Kaltur's eyes flared like fire. "You dare stand before your emperor?" Vaylor laughed. "The age of Titans ends today. Old one." He pointed his spear toward Evan. "And it ends because of him." Evan froze. "Me? What did I do?" "You saved the royal bloodline," Vaylor sneered. "You gave them hope. You made them believe mortals matter. That's the seed of rebellion," Lyra growled. "Enough talk," and lunged. But Vaylor was fast, faster than anyone expected. His spear met her blade, and the clash sent a shockwave through the room. Evan watched helplessly as Lyra and Vaylor fought, every strike like thunder and lightning colliding. Cerise tried to join, but enemy soldiers cut her off. Forcing her back, Kelter stepped forward, his staff glowing brighter with every heartbeat. "Evan," the Emperor thundered. "To the core chamber, protect the heart of the throne." Evan hesitated. "But Lyra shouted over the noise. "Go! The heart controls the ship. If it falls, we all die." Without another word, Evan ran down the corridor. The ship's alarms echoed around him, the walls shaking with every blast. He followed glowing lines along the floor until he reached a massive chamber at the center. The heart of the throne floated in Nitter, a glowing sphere of golden energy the size of a house, pulsing like a heartbeat. But he wasn't alone. 2 infiltrators were already there, planting charges. "Oh no, you don't," Evan muttered. Diving for cover, he grabbed a loose energy coil. Twisting it until sparks shot out, the intruders turned just as he hurled the sparking cable toward them. The explosion was small, but powerful enough to throw them off balance. Evan charged forward, slamming his elbow into one. Grabbing the detonator from the floor, he smashed it under his boot. "Not today," he growled. The heart glowed brighter, reacting to his touch. Streams of energy wrapped around him, whispering in an ancient Ten language. He didn't understand the words, but he felt them. Felt warmth and purpose. Suddenly, Lyra's voice echoed through the comms, strained and urgent. "Evan, it's happening. The heart is bonding with you." "What does that mean?" He shouted. "It means," Cerise's voice came next, trembling, "you're becoming part of the throne." His hands glowed, the mark on his chest burning bright. The heart pulsed faster. Synchronizing with his heartbeat, he gasped, feeling energy surge through his veins. The entire ship responding to him like it was alive. Then everything went silent. The battle noises faded, the vibrations ceased, and a calm light filled the air. Keltur's voice echoed softly, proud and full of awe. The throne has chosen its protector. Lyra stepped into the chamber, blood on her cheek but fire in her eyes. You did it, human, she whispered. You saved us all again. But before Evan could answer, the ship's sensors flared red once more outside. An entire fleet of enemy reinforcements appeared from the dark. Thousands of ships surrounding them. The Emperor looked toward the stars. His face unreadable. The final test begins, he said. His voice steady as stone, and as the Imperial throne prepared for war, Evan realized his trial of worth was far from over. It was only the dawn of something far greater, something that would decide the fate of humanity itself. The stars burned red outside the Imperial throne. Thousands of enemy warships filled the void, their lights flashing like a storm of fireflies before a hurricane. Inside the massive ship, Evan stood beside the glowing heart, energy still pulsing through his body. His skin shimmered faintly with golden light, the mark on his chest burning brighter than ever. Lyra and Cerise stood beside him, their armor cracked and scorched, but their eyes alive with fire. Behind them, Emperor Keltur prepared for the last battle. His golden cloak tore in the wind of the ship's engines. His staff hummed with the sound of creation itself. They've surrounded us, Cerise whispered. We can't outnumber them. Keltur's voice rolled across the chamber, calm yet powerful. Then we do not count enemies. We count those willing to stand. Evan looked at the shimmering core, and then at the Emperor. The heart, it listens to me now, he said slowly. It feels alive, like it's waiting for something. Keltur turned, his burning eyes softening slightly. The throne chooses only once every 1,000 cycles, he said. It seems it found in you what our kind has forgotten. Evan frowned. And what's that? Humanity, Keltur said quietly. Before Evan could reply, the ship rocked violently. Explosions echoing through the halls. The walls flared red, and the warning tones screamed again. Lyra steadied herself, gripping a support beam. They're breaching the outer hull, she shouted. Father, give the order. The Emperor raised his staff, and the entire fleet responded. Titan ships aligned in perfect formation around the throne. Each vessel glowed gold, forming a radiant barrier in the darkness of space. The Council of Blades opened fire. Plasma storms blazing like suns, the shields rippled, straining under the endless barrage. Evan ran to the console, his fingers flying over the controls. Your defenses can't hold forever, he said. The reactors are overheating. Keltur glanced down at him. Then do what you were born to do. Mechanic of Earth, fix what gods have broken. Evan smirked despite the chaos. I'll do more than fix it. He pressed his hands to the control field. The golden circuits responded instantly, energy flowing from the heart into his veins. For a moment, he saw everything. The positions of ships, the flow of power, the beating heart of a living empire. The voice of the throne whispered inside his mind. Protect the light. Evan closed his eyes, focusing every thought, every emotion, every piece of hope he ever had. The ship obeyed, energy pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. Shields brightened, guns recharged, systems realigned. It was like commanding the soul of a star. Lyra stared in awe. He's merging with the throne, she whispered. He's... One of us, Cerise placed a hand over her heart. No, sister. He's something beyond us. The Emperor stepped forward, raising his staff toward the sky. Then let us show the traitors what unity means, he declared. Outside, the fleet moved as one. The golden light from the Imperial throne spread like dawn across the blackness of space. Every Titan vessel ignited with power drawn from Evan's connection. The humans' courage had become their strength. The enemy fleet wavered as the radiance grew too bright. What is this power? Vaylor's voice screamed through the comms. His flagship firing in fury, Evan opened his eyes, his voice echoing through every ship. "It's called Hope," he said. He focused, and beams of pure light erupted from the throne, slicing through the enemy armada like rivers of sunlight cutting shadow. Explosions bloomed across the void, red ships tearing apart. Their formation broke, and for the first time, the Council of Blades began to retreat, but Vaylor's flagship charged directly toward them, its engines blazing. "If I fall, you fall with me," he roared, his ship spinning into a suicide run. Lyra gasped, "He's going to ram us." Kelter's voice boomed, "Evan, the heart cannot withstand a direct impact." Evan clenched his fists, his energy surging. "Then I'll stop him." Before anyone could stop him, he stepped forward into the heart's light. His body dissolved into the golden glow, merging completely with the ship. The throne's pulse synchronized with his own heartbeat. Outside, the Imperial throne flared brighter than a sun. Evan's voice echoed across every comm channel, calm and steady. "Lyra, Ceres, tell Earth, tell everyone, that even the smallest hands can hold the stars." The light burst outward, enveloping Vaylor's ship. The collision never came. Instead, the entire enemy vessel disintegrated into dust, scattered like ash across the galaxy. When the brilliance faded, silence filled the void. The Council of Blades was gone. The Emperor's fleet floated unharmed among the ruins of war. Inside the throne, Lyra and Ceres looked toward the glowing heart. It no longer pulsed violently. Instead, it shimmered softly, peaceful. The voice that once filled the room was quiet now. Ceres's eyes filled with tears. "He's gone." Lyra placed her hand against the glass, her voice breaking. "No. He's become part of the stars." Kelter bowed his head. "He gave his mortal life to save immortals," he said softly. "There has never been a greater victory than that." Days later, when the fires of war were gone, the Emperor himself descended to Dresden 5, where Evan's workshop still stood among the dunes. He raised his hand, and from the sands rose a shining structure, half machine, half monument, shaped like a human hand holding a star. Lyra and Ceres stood before it, silent, their hearts heavy and full. The Emperor turned to them. "He will be remembered as one of us," he said, "a friend of the Titans, guardian of both man and star." Then the Emperor lifted his gaze toward the twin suns. "From this day forward, Earth shall be protected under my banner," he declared. "Let no power threaten the world of the human who taught Titans compassion." As the sun set over Dresden 5, the winds carried a faint hum, the sound of old engines and laughter echoing through the sands. And somewhere among the stars, where machines and souls intertwine, a voice whispered softly through the endless dark. "I told you everything's fixable." The Imperial throne drifted across the cosmos, its heart pulsing gently, a reminder that one poor mechanic's kindness had changed the destiny of empires, and taught the galaxy what it truly meant to be human.